Imagine a world where you're the only person alive. How long could you survive? What achievements could you unlock in complete solitude? Vintage stories and uncompromising wilderness survival sandbox. But we'll face these questions head on. With just one life, no map, and absolutely no idea what we're doing. We're born into a breathtaking yet unforgiving world as none other than ourselves, vile shinobi. Normally, I don't interrupt a story, but I just wanted to take a moment to talk directly. Jump to the timestamp for the start of the regular video. I just switched recording software and I'm testing out settings throughout this video. By the end of it, I think I found something I really like, so I'd love to get your feedback. This is also just a one-off video unless people want to see more. Make sure to hit the like button to let me know. The next Project Zombo series is coming soon. I'm really excited about it. Now back to survival. Into the wilderness we're thrown to find our way. Our first objective in our wild beginnings is to find a place to settle down, a place to call home. During our travels, we scavenged the ground for rocks to nap into tools. This area seemed short on good rocks. Sandstone, which was mostly unusable at the moment, and flint lay scattered around. We could use the flint to nap a knife blade, and then we could collect some sticks from nearby bushes, and through the sheer force of will, we'll be able to craft them into a knife. We continued on our way until we came to the coastline. The cattail reeds we found here could be used for baskets and rope, which were both pretty handy in survival situations. Unbeknownst to us, this area was already claimed by another. As we came through the foliage, a pack of ferocious wolves sent us running for our lives. We ran and ran until we thought we were far enough away, and as our heartbeats began to settle, we continued our cattail gathering. While an assassin in wait took this opportunity to charge forth behind the bushes, and there in the cold waters, our life came to a surprisingly quick end. Death is an inevitability. It will come for us all. But our story is about prolonging that for as long as possible. So we venture out once more into a new world with a new character. And already things are looking up for us. We started in a beautiful oasis. There was just a suspicious lacking of trees in the nearby area. The strong granite stones for napping tools. It would be in these foothills where we spawned that we would make our home. We started our quest for progress. Our first goal will always be to gather food. We collected the edible mushrooms and berries and turnips in the area, and then set out to find trees. Just beyond the trader, which shouldn't be there and won't be utilized, we found a beautiful forest filled with everything we needed to build our first cabin. With our gained knowledge, we quickly descended into the pond and gathered up the cattails so we can make 4 baskets, expanding our inventory greatly. Each basket cost 10 cattails and provided 3 additional slots. With our bags acquired, we turned our attention back to collecting the lumber we needed for our house. We crafted up a few axes from the granite and sticks, and then marched our way across the plains to the forest we had discovered. It was at this point we were racing against the descent of the sun. With every chop of our axe against wood, the sun descended closer to our horizon. We raced the decaying light upon the world to gather the grass we needed for a bed, and bolted back to the place we declared as ours. We flattened the earth and placed our deed for all to know this land was ours. And when darkness would fully descend, we would at least have a roof over our bed, and walls around us to protect us from predators. Day 2 came, and with it, so did new challenges. The land we claimed belonged to another, and he wasn't about to give it up without a fight. A moose surprised us by jumping over our walls. We acted before him, smashing our axe down into his face, and our first battle for territory began. After a fierce battle with man and beast, the moose came out the victor, laughing at our dismay. sending our lifeless body down to the depths of Davy Jones' locker. Once again, we erased the universe and reset back to square one. A commoner with nothing to our name. We spawned out in a beautiful green plain, the soft wind whistling across the open fields as we barreled across its depth. We found a decent supply of berries and good stones before ultimately coming out at a beautiful lake which we would call our home. With our home base decided, we turned our focus to progress. A knife to collect plants, reeds to make baskets, and axes to chop trees. Our goal was to create shelter and a place to sleep away the dark nights before the sun set upon us tonight. The world had suddenly opened up its jaws and tried to swallow us whole. We narrowly escaped being buried alive. We couldn't let our near-death experience stop us, as we were in a race against the sun. We quickly gathered up everything we thought we'd need for our house, and then set out to find the perfect spot. We had high hopes for this area of land, since it was set atop granite, which means we would be able to find many great resources. We found a nice nook in between two jutting cliffs with an absolutely beautiful view of our surrounding land. It'd be here among the rolling hills, lakes, and skyward mountains that we'd place our mark on the world. We quickly set out to turn this patch of dirt into a home. We shoveled out the extra dirt and leveled the ground, and then quickly set out to build up the walls and roofs to protect us from any possible wandering mooses. As our light dwindled away, our house stood partially completed, but we'd have to settle with this for the night. We built our bed and laid our head to rest for the light to return once more. The sun's light had barely started to scorch the earth when we reawakened to the soft rumbling of the valley's wind blowing through our home. We set out immediately to get more wood to finish the roof to our new house under a glorious morning sky. On our way home, we stumbled upon a large patch of peat, which gathered neatly into peat blocks. Unsure of their use, we decided to gather some anyways and store it away until later. If we needed more, we could always get more, since this was right next to our house. We also discovered a lovely patch of turnips that we hadn't noticed when we first moved in, sitting just outside of our wall. We built a very simple roof in case we decided to expand the homestead later. Leaving it flat would allow us to act as a patio or second floor if we ever needed more space. We found a patch of tulle in a nearby pond and harvested it for some thatch awning we placed along the outside of the house and make it look just a little bit more like home. With the roof basically completed, we crafted a fire starter and placed it in what would be our future kitchen, with a beautiful view over the Sunset Lake through our front window. At the end of the day, we enjoyed a delicious meal of raw turnips and berries, freshly foraged while we gaze out over the beautiful horizon. Our initial goal of building a house was basically complete. We now needed to start thinking about renewable food sources and advancing ourselves out of the Stone Age. For that, we would need clay, better dirt, and seeds. We awoke before the sun's rays had lit the world, and sat in complete darkness munching on berries, until we could actually see 5 feet in front of ourselves. We had crafted some shovels to hunt for clay today, but instead decided to venture back into the woods to gather some more wood. We wouldn't be satisfied with dirt floors in our home. It was here we heard the howls of danger for the first time. We anxiously continued gathering timber, wary of how close they were. With wood in hand, we raced home as quickly as we could. We dug down and removed the layer of dirt and replaced it all with oak logs. We thought it would look better than grass growing wildly everywhere, at least. Beautiful. We converted the surplus logs into firewood for future use. Yet there was apprehension about the risk of burning down the entire house if a fire was lit. We conducted a test on a log positioned outside the house to determine whether the log flooring and walls would ignite from a campfire. While awaiting conclusive results from our test, we transformed our front yard by using the excessive dirt collected from removing a layer of flooring. Ultimately, our test proved we could build a fire in the house without burning it down at least, and our front yard looked a little more pleasing. Now we had a new problem. We had let ourselves run out of food in our hunt for vanity, so now we'd need to set out hunting. We grabbed our shovels and crafted a few spears. If we found clay while we were out hunting and foraging, we wanted to be ready to gather it. Our first hunt was a small hare, but it would at least provide a small portion of nutrition and some raw hide that we could use later. We weren't very good at hunting yet, missing most of our throws, but we were decent at foraging and found many hidden gems among this valley's plant life. We didn't return home until the sun had already started to set. We were welcomed by the rest of our surprised turnips having grown ripe, finishing off a beautiful day of hunting and foraging, though we hadn't found any clay yet. Unfortunately, my computer gave up on me, and it ended up corrupting a bunch of footage. We now have better settings, but things are a bit misaligned for a while, and we didn't realize it during recording. What was missed was we found a bunch of clay north of the base and started making clay structures, such as a clay oven and an anvil mold. Day 5 came and we awoke and finished what we started yesterday. We finished off the clay anvil mold and a few other clay oddities like a cooking pot and bowl, then ate a light breakfast of kebabbed meat and wild berries. After breakfast, we would terraform our homestead a little more, collect more wood from the mighty oak tree, and shore up our supply of firewood for the foreseeable future. We also finally found a use for peat blocks. We could use them as fuel for our pit kilns, which we used to harden the clay molds and kitchenware we had crafted. Atop our granite cliffs, we carefully weaved together multiple pit kilns, and since we had additional pit kilns, we went out of our way to make a few more clay structures, including a storage vessel which we'd be using for basic storage for now. However, we ran out of clay and had to wait until day 6 to go and collect more. We filled up every pit kiln to make the most of our baking session, and then layered dry grass, sticks, and peat blocks in layers to make the pit kilns. Then we'd craft a torch from a stick and dry grass and light it on our campfire and ignite our first steps to a more sophisticated lifestyle. With the kilns lit, we ventured back out into the wilderness to forage and hunt once more. It was around here when we noticed something wasn't right with the recording, and were able to fix everything, giving us a glorious full view back. However, the encroaching sound of thunder had us rushing our quest. In a hurry, we leaped into the lake, spear in hand, in hopes of successfully fishing up dinner before the storm arrived. Along with some fish, we found the carcass of a young hare in the shallow waters. When we got home, we placed the fish atop our open fire and relished in a successful hunt. We sat atop our humble cabin and listened to the distant thunder rolling across our valley while we enjoyed the spoils of adventure, the sun slowly slipping away to darkness. When only the light of our kilns remained, we found solace in our sleep. Day 7 was an exciting day. Our clay crafts were finally baked and ready to be used. We quickly took our storage container and put it to use, lightening the burden of our baskets. Then we crafted some makeshift wooden armor, which would hopefully let us survive at least one hit from any predator, giving us a chance to escape. With our glorious wooden armor, we set out once more into the wilderness in search of food. Out in the plains, we spotted a sizable creature. It appeared to be a raccoon. We chased it west and the hunt began. In the South Forest, we found a bunch of blueberry bushes, which after harvesting, we decided to take back with us. It gave us the idea to start a berry farm back at the house. In order to do that, we'd need better fertilized soil and a bunch of berry bushes. Luckily, on our way home, we'd find the soil we needed. Only interrupted briefly by the howl of the nearby wolves. We toil away the rest of the day preparing our beautiful self-watering garden, laying down lower quality dirt first, and then the richer stuff on top of it. Day 8 was all about the garden. We set out at first light to forage for fruits and vegetables, and gather up a variety of different berry bushes, as well as to hunt up some delicious protein. When we had a good collection of black currants, red currants, and cranberries, we went home and planted them in our garden. When we were satisfied by their separation, we turned our focus to preparing more clay molds for when we would eventually find copper. We made a hammer mold, pickaxe mold, axe mold, and prospecting blade mold for our eventual first copper tools. By the time we actually melt any copper, we planned to have an entire assortment. When we were finished cooking breakfast, we placed all the molds into pit kilns in preparation for another batch of baking, and then crafted our first piece of clothing from raw hide, a wonderful and perfect pair of rawhide pants. On day 9, the sun's red hues shattered the darkened sky while the moon still hung precariously on the horizon. We enjoyed a berry breakfast and looked yonder over our lake. With our newest settings, everything was looking even more gorgeous than before. With breakfast out of the way, we went out and gathered sticks for our pit kilns, and on our way back we discovered a very interesting spawning pool, a school of fish trapped in a knee-high puddle. We gathered a few of them, but decided to leave a pair for breeding, to find out if they'd continue to reproduce. Without sustainable sources of food, hunting and gathering can continue to take up a lot of our days. After we lit the kilns and crafted a few spears, we set out south from the house to explore the rolling hills. We heard an auspicious sound rumble out from the thicket, which sent us running in the other direction. We wanted absolutely nothing to do with any of the strange sounds. When heavy rain suddenly fell upon the world, we turned around and headed home. The sun was already setting, so it seemed like a good time to call our adventure closed. When we got home, we planted the single grain seed we had found in the hills and then checked on our crops to make sure they were okay. Dinner was our next objective, but it was time to utilize our cooking pot. We threw some spelt grains and a couple berries in a pot and let it boil over a beautiful fire. What was made was something quite beautiful, an actual meal, the first of its kind. We engorged happily into our first meal, the nutrients rushing through us like a tidal wave of pleasure. Our hunger bar was completely filled without even consuming the entire porridge. This was monumental. We had learned the art of cooking. With all the stepping stones in place to leave the Stone Age, we went out on another adventure in search of copper deposits on the surface. We didn't have any clues about where we might find some, so we searched blindly in different directions than the days prior. Only the sounds of predators was enough to make us change our headings. On our way home, we discovered a granite cave. We pulled our lit torch from our bag and slowly descended into the unknown. Turns out it's just a really big hole in the ground that we may be able to turn into a quarry later down the road. Back home again, and still unsuccessful in finding copper. We plant our second grain seed and then utilize the raw hide we gathered to make a better shirt for us. This still wasn't amazing, but it at least had some insulation compared to the starting clothes. Since we still had about half a day's worth of sunlight, we decided to set out north in search of copper. Waiting in the jungle was a plethora of edible mushrooms that we happily harvested. And then we gave up on our search for copper nodes. Instead, we gathered granite sands from a distant pond. With any luck, we'd be able to pan through this sand and find us some usable copper that we could melt down. When we got home, we carved a panning pan from a wood log, and then prepared our panning spot right by our farmlands. The sun set upon us while we set this up, so we were close to our cabin. Our stomachs were full, so we prepared a mushroom stew for the morning, and then laid our heads to rest. Day 11 and 12 would be arduous and tedious. Our kilns had finished baking, so we stored the molds and then went right out to panning. For 2 days, we panned away, slaving through blocks and blocks of sand. We took a break at one point to dig more clay up, but then we panned some more. The rewards for our panning efforts were vast. Multiple copper spear tips, over 40 copper pieces, and various other possible valuable stone resources. We used the clay we dug up to make a bunch of extra storage vessels and a few other useful oddities. With us getting ready to jump ages, we had a feeling that storage space was about to become even more valuable. Day 13 came and brought with it the beautiful sun's glow. We lit our kiln and cooked another glorious meal, almost burning down our house as we accidentally dropped our torch when trying to light the campfire. We crafted some wooden tongs for when we melt down the copper, so we'd be able to handle the extreme temperatures. Almost everything was set in place for our advancement into the Copper Age. It had been about 2 weeks since we woke up as the only human in the world, and we feel we've made great use of our time, created a wonderful home that would welcome us into the future. It is here where we depart ways. If you want to see a continuance of this series, make sure to hit the like button and let me know in the comments. If you want to see me do a hardcore playthrough with all the Lovecraftian horrors, let me know as well. Vintage Story has many different ways to tell a tale, and if enough interest is garnered, we'd absolutely enjoy telling those odysseys.